One Sunday at church, I was standing in a commons area with Latasha, the church security person, when a homeless gentleman, a young man actually, came up to us and asked us if he could tell us something. We were like, well, of course. And he said, well, it's pretty bad, and I'm not quite sure how to say it. We we assured him that we had heard and seen everything, and that it was okay to tell us anything he needed to tell us. He told us that he had just come from the men's washroom and someone had taken fecal matter and written words all over the walls. Latasha saw the look of shock on my face and turned to me and said, happens all the time. Welcome to Sunday Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Sunday Coffee Hour, we talk about everything and nothing. This Sunday, we talked about cryptocurrency and how people on the road are just increasingly very bad drivers, and how sometimes we feel like we need to be looking for a new religion. The lectionary readings this Sunday at National Cathedral were from Jeremiah. Woe to those who scatter the flock, and from Colossians, those who are persecuted joyfully. The scripture reading was about how Jesus was portrayed to the authorities when he pointed out that there are more of us than those who rule over us. John Meacham's sermon at Washington National Cathedral is about how life is both thrilling and terrifying. And he referenced the analogy of driving, that if everyone was a good driver, we wouldn't need any rules of the road. At St. James, the message was about insurrection, and they expanded on the idea that there are more of us than those who rule over us, and more often than not, those who rule over us are always looking for new ways to coerce us into doing what they want us to do. We don't have any discussion topics or pre-prescribed questions at Sunday Coffee Hour, but this Sunday I was presented with a question when I was asked what I really meant in last week's synopsis of Fourth Church being dead but not forgotten. And at first I started off by saying I just assumed that no one actually read any of the things that I wrote. And I was corrected in that yes, indeed, people do read it. And I said, my experience has been that whenever you make a mistake or have a misspelling or a typo or a wrong date, that's when you know people are really paying attention, because you definitely always get a good response whenever you make a mistake. So I tried to backpedal a little bit what I was talking about, an idea that it was a play on words somewhat, that many good people have died at Fourth Church. Many terrific people have passed on, and that was partly what I was referring to. Those people, our past is dead, but it's not forgotten, and we have remembered many people recently, including Betty Bergstrom, Mary Simmons, and Mary Jane Jones, along with Charlotte Davies and many others, Rosemary Schnell. I could go on and on, actually. Really terrific characters from our past. But truth be known, of course, it was obvious I was referring to the church itself, is many ways has died for many of us. It died quite a while ago. And it's possible it'll be something new for people in the future, but it seemed unnecessary carnage in the process of becoming something supposedly new. I shared that in my journey of transition, the transition at Fourth, I did speak out, which was something new for me. I don't think any of us like to rock the boat or be disagreeable. Recently, the idea of self-censorship was presented to me as a phenomenon, and I can really see that myself and others, we're pretty good at practicing the art of self-censorship. we just don't want to say anything or be a bad person because it really messes with our idea of who and what being a good person is all about. But I did go to leadership, and specifically, one of the people was Mark Miller, and Mark Miller, he answered my concerns by giving me his opinion that Fourth Church was not a social services agency; it was a church. And in that, I heard something, some kind of idea in someone's mind of what a church is supposed to be, supposed to look like, supposed to feel like, and apparently we weren't it. And I was disappointed in that because I think that church can manifest itself in many different ways, and it often manifests its way in taking care of others. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of our corporate culture, and it's one of the many ways that the church can manifest. Also, in my conversations, Nanette sought me out to find out where I was in the transition. And she shared with me the idea that the old people, the people from our past, would go away, and we would get new people, new members. And I'm not embarrassed to say that gave me pause. I was very concerned at the time about people leaving the church, being disgruntled, being very alarmed and not returning. And Nanette tried to assuage my concern by saying we would get these new people. And I I just don't know if I thought that was practical or even necessary. It doesn't seem necessary that you need to get rid of the old in order to make room for the new. And if you're going to do so, you probably could do it a little bit more smoothly. I had people literally running out on Sunday morning during the church service in alarm and disgust. And when I went after them to find out, what was wrong, people shared with me the sentiment that the leadership at church was destroying one of Chicago's great institutions. And again, I don't have a problem with being a great institution. What's wrong with being a great institution and a social service agency with a little church on the periphery? I think that's where God likes to hang out. Most often is on the periphery, and we had a tremendous periphery at Fourth Church. Last week I cited Morgan Simmons as not particularly my best friend, and this week I cited Allison Gerlach. And Allison Gerlach is similar. She was not my best friend, but I always worked with her, and happily so, and found her to be really quite insightful in many ways. And one thing I remember Allison saying when I was on the board of deacons with her, we were talking about change and new programs. Allison pointed out that you can't be all things to all people, and I think that's a very good point. We have to be who we are and be okay with that. And in talking to everyone on Sunday Coffee Hour, their experiences and their relationship with church and with Fourth in particular, I was struck by the idea that actually Fourth was so many things to so many different people. It was not the same thing for different people. It was many, many things to many people just by being what it was. In our church life, in my life with Presbytery, I've also worked with Second Presbyterian and First Presbyterian. And First Presbyterian, I was first presented the idea that the Presbytery itself, had a vision of what First Pres should be. And that vision was that it should be a Black church. And I really still can't quite wrap my head around that because, again, I don't see how someone's pre-proposed idea should be projected onto any entity or person or organization. But that's what the people at First told me, is that the Presbytery had this vision that First should be a Black church. And I mean, they were decidedly a mixed congregation. I think maybe we're operating out of a antiquated model of integration, but First was a model of a mixed congregation. And I don't think, again, that that's wrong or something that needs to be gotten rid of. So in my current thinking, I don't know what is afoot at Fourth, but I mean, people at Coffee Hour have suggested that it would appear they're trying to make Fourth a Black church. So again, this has never been shared or articulated, but when it was famously said once, if you don't make your own PR, it'll make itself. And surprisingly, churches talk about being transparent, but there's a reason they operate behind stained glass because they're not so good at being transparent. So I can only surmise what Presbytery is thinking. But I guess if you looked at Chicago and suburban churches, you would say, okay, well, suburban churches, Presbyterian churches, are predominantly white. So in order for there to be equity or equality, you would need to have Black churches. Chicago, the city of Chicago, is a third white, a third Hispanic, and a third Black. But oddly enough, we never hear about the Hispanic people. I know from the Chicago Lights organization, their grant writing, their mission is to end the cycle of poverty, and poverty has been equated with Black people. So again, these are inconvenient topics or truths, whatever you want to call them, viewpoints. I don't even know what we are allowed to have anymore if we're allowed to have a viewpoint or opinion. But again, all we can do is struggle to make sense of where we are in life in general and in the world as we try to gather our facts and figures and balance that with just our inner knowing. And I think when you look at your inner knowing, it guides you where you should be and where you don't you no longer are welcome or need to hang out. But as I said, we don't have pre-prescribed discussion topics or questions at Sunday Coffee Hour. We just have us just hanging out on the periphery and talking about whatever is on people's minds and trying to find our way in this troubled time. If you would like to join us on Sunday Coffee Hour is every Sunday at 12 noon Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video, and I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.